Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
And welcome back, everyone, to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute, a podcast where we are currently breaking down and celebrating the Gene Wilder film Young Frankenstein, one fully reanimated and transferred monster at a time. I'm Alan Sanders.
And I'm Walt Murray.
And joining us to wrap up the week once again from the Airplane Minute, we've got David Smith. David, thanks for being with us all week long, and thanks for making it back here for Friday.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. We appreciate. We were, as we were mentioning, I think off between takes here, that we must all share some similar senses of humor. Some of the movie references we all get just by one line shows we've all watched a similar body of films.
Yeah, it is great. I think it's been happening all week. Is one of us will throw out a line from some random movie, and it just goes by because we all know what it is.
Right. It doesn't need explaining, like midichlorians. Nope.
Right. I swear if you've mentioned midichlorians again.
Wrong show.
Wrong, exactly. Well, let's go ahead and see what's going on with this scene that's been playing out pretty much all week long here for us, that the villagers have broken into the castle von Frankenstein, and they are making their way through the house, or through the castle, and that mob makes its way eventually down into the laboratory, and we will end with the monster confronting Kemp, saying, "I am the monster," to which Kemp says, "Yeah, I see that." So let's go ahead and dive straight into this, and with the problem I mentioned yesterday, I have one really huge problem right now. Walt, can you even guess what it might be?
I've got a long list of problems that you've got.
I know, related to Young Frankenstein.
Oh, related to Young Frankenstein.
I've got this rash that doesn't seem to be going away.
Oh, no, there's another problem you've got.
No. Do you have any idea what my issue might be with this minute?
I'm guessing it's probably not the same issue I've got.
How would you know? You didn't say.
Well, is it the clock shot?
Well, that's going to be something separate.
Okay.
That's a technical thing. I have that's going to be like the fourth time they've done that.
Problem with the actual flow of the film?
Well, Dave, do you have any idea why I might have a problem with what's going on in this minute?
Not really, because I haven't heard the episodes where you're discussing the layout of the castle. So I think that's where you're going with this. I don't know what the problem is. You are
absolutely hitting the nail on the head, because the only way so far we know of how to get to the secret laboratory is you have to go up the treacherous staircase into Victor Frankenstein's bedroom to find the secret turnaround bookcase with the candle you've got to figure out the mechanics on, all the way down through past all of the 3-year dead, 2-year dead, 1-year dead heads, and into the secret laboratory. How did they know how to get there?
One of them took AP Riot at junior college, I guess.
Yeah, that may be our best explanation.
Yeah. There's that one scene taken out with like the nerd that always gets made fun of, and he managed to punch up the digital plans that are being held in the Transylvania city planner's office.
Well, and what's the Brainy Smurf from the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, yes. Brainy Smurf. We've got Danny Goldman showing back up. Isn't it true that if you want to get to the secret lab... Oh, shut him up.
Well, and did they come down the same way that Inga and Dr. Frankenstein at the time
yes.
came down from his bedroom?
Yes, because we know there's a secret way because Frau Blucher knows there's a way into the lab. Nobody comes out from the secret passageway next to the private library. Right. They come from the top of that balcony area, down the side steps, and into the lab. And the only way we know how to get into the lab is through the bookcase.
That's a problem.
So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
They have somehow magically, with the rioter's brain going on, and half of them went one way and half went the other way, and they somehow all rendezvoused on this top balcony, which could have only been accessed through Victor Frankenstein's secret passageway through his bookshelf.
Yeah, and I see your problem. Yeah,
stupid. Who would stop a movie 1 minute at a time to find these stupid problems?
Well, I see your problem, and I'll raise you a problem.
Okay.
The mob mentality is very reckless and out of control, and they come down the steps, they break the whatever the machine is here, and then they just stop. I would have, if it was a real mob, they would have gone ahead and attacked both the doctor and the monster, and probably Igor and Inga as well. So they really go from like 400 miles an hour to 0 miles an hour in an instant. So there is that problem as well.
Dave,
it's true, but I think they set it up so that the shock of hearing the monster speak is what settles them down, and
kind of gets their attention.
A riot would definitely be harder to stop than this, but it's a comedy.
Well, we'll use that as our excuse. It's a comedy.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got some other problems then. I'm telling you, I hated saying it earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
This rush to get through to the ending, and part of it is script, but I'm blaming some of this on direction. I got to put a little bit of this on paying attention. I want you to look at the very opening seconds when Inga and Igor are saying, "What's that?" Like they don't know the sound of a rioting crowd approaching, apparently.
Right.
There's a piece of equipment directly behind Inga, which means it's directly between Frankenstein and his creature.
Right, the brain juice pump.
The thing that's pumping up and down, right? You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
When the rioting villagers come down and the guy comes running in and breaks a piece of equipment, that's what he's breaking. When you pause it, he's breaking that same pump directly between Inga, or behind Inga, but between the monster and Dr. Frankenstein. And so after it sparks and blows up, we see the clock with a weird sort of zoom in, and then we come back into the room. There's nobody behind that equipment. There's nobody even close to where that equipment was that just got blown up.
Yeah, it's definitely... Yeah, he couldn't have even gotten to it, I don't think. I think there's so much equipment back there that he wouldn't have been able to walk up to it.
I mean, it's even lit wrong. I mean, let me back up for a second. Dave, you as a cinematographer, when you see just that one insert shot of the angry villager breaking this piece of equipment, that lighting is nowhere close to the general lighting when we go back to the more of a wide shot.
No, it's true. And I'm sure you know this as well, doing the productions that you do, is that if you're doing action, it's an action scene like this, and you want to add in an insert shot of something violent happening, you probably shoot it well after you've shot the master, and probably all the coverage as well. So I'm sure what they did was they shot all this scene, and then they went back and said, all right, we need insert shots of people breaking stuff, and they just picked the thing and lit it and shot it and threw it in there. So that's how it works,
Well,
it's a good point. Like, I hadn't caught that before, but you're absolutely right.
Yep, this movie sucks. I'm done.
It's the worst movie ever.
This is garbage.
Can we start our own group like that that Star Wars hate group?
Right.
You're ruining our movies that we love so much that we don't want you to ever make another one again.
That's it. I'm boycotting Young Frankenstein 2.
No sequel.
I'm out. Crowdfund a remake.
Crowdfunder.
Hashtag this blows.
Yeah, no. I love pointing out little things like that, but I think this is the Indiana Jones guys, the Indiana Jones Minute, if you follow that, they run into this problem during these action sequences. When you slow any action sequence down for the sake of just looking at what's happening moment to moment, it's so hard continuity-wise to match second for second what's happening. They expect the audience that's watching it real time to not worry about these little minutia details. Right. If it's all flowing, you just assume, okay, they're breaking in. They found their way. They're crashing downstairs. It's a race against the clock. Somebody breaks the piece of equipment. The clock stops 2 seconds too soon. Mm-hmm. That's what everybody's focused on. They're not thinking, how did they find the secret passage? Where's the guy after he just broke that piece of machine? And why is it still working behind? You don't stop to do that.
What you're saying is that Dad's right when he says, come on, guys, it's just a movie.
Well, yeah, yes and
What's wrong with you with all your movie analysis?
But, and Dave, I'll ask you this. The really good ones, you don't see those kinds of problems. But
that's right.
I think any movie's got continuity issues, but I think you sometimes have to just accept the fact that for the sake of telling the story, you're going to have mistakes left in the movie.
Yeah, it's true. And there's kind of two things there. One, my screenwriting teacher in film school said that like you just said, every movie has holes. just even the best movies have script holes and problems that you will find if you analyze it too much. But the good movies, the holes you don't notice. And ever since going to film school, I hear the refrain repeated time and time again when I'm either making something or analyzing it like this. If the people are noticing that, you've got bigger problems.
That's, and that's Spielberg said that actually on the set of Raiders of the Lost Ark when they were shooting in Cairo, and they had the big chase scene with Marion getting taken off in one direction and Indiana Jones in the other direction. And I think 2 or 3 days into it, I don't know if it was a continuity supervisor or somebody came up to Steven Spielberg and said, this hallway we're shooting down now doesn't match anything close to the last time we were in this area. It's completely different. And he said that exact thing. He said, if the audience catches that in the midst of what we're doing, then we have something bad wrong.
Yeah, we failed.
We failed along the way.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, I never caught any of that until now. Until we're breaking it down. There is my one pet peeve, though. And I'll give a negative and then I'll give a positive. The clock shot is that same dadgum framing and shot that they had earlier in the film. They've done this 2 or 3 times. It's kind of that freeze frame cut in. It just kind of aggravates me.
I don't like any of the ones where they have to do this. The one where they freeze the movie and then they sort of artificially punch into it for like a fake zoom. They did it with Igor's face early on. They did it with the moon. And they did it here with the clock.
Yep. And it's just kind of I don't know why I don't like it, but it's a pet peeve for me. But this is at least the third time they've done it.
It's the third time where they freeze and Dave, do you see what we're talking about? The shot of the clock right around second 22, 23. The clock, it's literally stopped. Like it's not even just that the clock stopped. It's the frame is done. Like they've paused the movie and now they've just zoomed in on this paused part of the movie.
Yeah. I see what you're talking about. And I agree that it's a weird thing. And it's one of those things that takes you out of the movie a little bit because suddenly you're seeing an effect, a thing that they've done to the movie.
Right. It doesn't feel natural.
Whenever you're watching it, it doesn't look natural. Whenever you're watching like an action sequence and they've sped it up to make it seem faster and you can just tell that they sped up the movie, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I hate that.
Right.
I hate when they do that. I'd rather buy into the fact that they don't have to move as fast and it's still, when it looks frenetic.
When it looks like Benny Hill.
Right, when it looks like Benny Hill, exactly. Yeah, I'm done. I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that.
And it's fine for Benny Hill to do it because it's Benny Hill's shtick. It's not fine to do it in an action movie.
So I don't know why. I actually don't know why this. Because of all the practical effects, I get why maybe with Igor, everybody's laughing too much, and you needed to do something. You didn't have something that you could cut away to. You didn't have an insert, so you freeze the film and do this quote artificial zoom in. I don't know why they did it with Igor. I don't know why they did it with the moon and the creature when he came to kidnap Elizabeth. But this one, of all the ones where if you just wanted the clock to stop and then zoom in, that's one of the easiest things. You unplug it. You unplug the clock, someone off screen unplugs the clock, then push in, and we don't get the sense that everything's kind of just like that it's a freeze frame that we're now pushing in. We would still sense that it's still a live picture.
And you also could have had either Igor or Inga say it's 2 seconds too soon. There are other ways to do it other than that. Well,
I don't mind showing the clock. That's kind of like your typical timer. James Bond, he diffuses the bomb with 0.007 seconds left. I mean, that's right. I get that, but it just feels that it's not even a digital. This weird analog push in. Dave, what do you even call this? Like what they're trying to do?
Yeah. Right, because it's a zoom in post, I guess you would call it, right? Because there's you can dolly in on something, or you can use a zoom lens and zoom in on it, which would both look better than this, even though they both have their differences. But then this is where, like you said, they just freeze the frame and took several pictures of the frame in closer and closer crops. And it's the way they did. I mean, I could probably do that now in modern editing software that would look a little bit more natural. But whatever technique they use then, it feels very artificial.
Yeah, every time I've seen either the 3 instances of this, I'm reminded, oh yeah, I'm watching a movie. Like I'm watching a movie with a mistake, something that I just don't like. It pulls me. I mean, I don't even forgive it. I'm like, why do that? Every time I see it, I'm like, that's terrible.
So from now on, when I want to say bullshit, instead I'll just say zoom in post.
Zoom in post? How did you link those two?
Because I hate when they do a zoom in post. Isn't that what you called it, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, zoom in
post. So,
all
okay.
right.
Now, on the positive side, something
That was your
really
negative.
love from this scene is the costuming. When those guys come through the door and you can see all those the great costumes that they're in, they look really authentic. And they look like what you would expect the villagers to be wearing. They all have, the great costumes, the great hats. They all look, they have that very Eastern European look, and it's very convincing.
Well, like we said before, when we saw them in the Angry Town Hall meeting, it looks like they just got done with rehearsal for Young Frankenstein. So it's good they kept their costumes on.
It does. And, and it would have been easy to cut corners and not make it as convincing, but they really did a great job with the costuming.
All right.
Yeah, they did.
Obviously, we don't see them in the hallway, but the door at the top of the stairs, which for some reason, no one has ever had a problem opening that door. They decided they got to use the battering ram technique again.
No, I don't know whether they would have really locked that door or not, because they didn't really expect to be overrun by an angry mob.
No.
Especially not from the upstairs bedroom.
No, not at all. So it's funny again, but it's one of those things where we just saw him use Kemp as a battering ram. We're seeing him kind of hoist him in again. It feels a little, again, for action's sake, it feels a little contrived.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a little bit of, this is the style of filmmaking or storytelling that just drives me nuts, where the actor in the scene feels compelled to tell you what we can already see happening on the screen.
Oh my God, it's the villagers!
Oh, look, it's the angry villagers. I don't need Inga to say that.
Right.
I see the angry villagers.
Yeah. She could have said anything else there.
It's just, it feels, again, a little sloppy here. We're trying to create an action sequence. We're trying to get everybody in here. We're trying to figure out how to wrap this scene up. And some of it feels a little clunky.
Yeah, and contrived, sloppy. I think there are a lot of things you can say, which is, like I said, I love this movie. This is one of my favorite movies, and it's still probably my favorite comedy of all time. And I love comedies, but man, these last few minutes are a little rough.
Let me give you a couple of things that are missing that either got filmed and dropped on the cutting room floor, or they just didn't film at all. There was actually going to be some additional heightened tension before we got down to how much time is left, 2 minutes. There was actually going to be, before that, she was going to look at look over at Igor and say, how long so far? He says, 12 minutes. She says, 3 minutes to go. And he says, yes. Then Igor, what do you want to do to kill time? Inga, oh, Igor, I'm so afraid. I just hope this all ends well. Then we cut to the villagers trying to crash inside. All of a sudden, inside the laboratory, Inga says, Igor, are you sure the doctor said 15 minutes? Are you absolutely certain it's not in danger? Igor, why certainly. May my mother grow 2 heads if this doesn't all end well. Then close up on a two-headed old lady sitting in a rocking chair, which is supposed to be a funny thing about Igor. Just a little insert. Then, outside, the Burgermeister and the villagers are breaking into the castle. The villagers scatter every which way, which we've already seen now. Mm-hmm. Then, Inga, what's that noise, which we have here? But Igor was supposed to say, sounds like someone left the telly on. I'm looking at Walt. He's looking like, this is terrible.
What?
Someone left the telly on. Then the villagers are supposed to start yelling, kill them, kill that doctor, kill the monster, tear them to pieces. Inga, handing the gauges to Igor. What time is it? Igor, oh, must be around midnight, maybe 12:15. I don't know why this is funny. Inga says, Igor, the clock, hurry. Igor says, oh. Then, as the villagers break in, Igor, we need another 20 seconds to go. Inga, do something. Stall them. Igor, now see here, going up to the villagers. What is the meaning of this? The Burgermeister, we wish to see the doctor. Igor says, what? Burgermeister, we wish to see the doctor. Igor says, what? Burgermeister, we wish to see the doctor. First villager says, oh, come on, man. Sweeps past him. And then we go to a clock on the wall that is at 11:59 and 50 seconds. And we see a second villager say, here's that crackpot doctor. Let's get him first. And the several villagers suddenly grab Freddy full on and pull the tubes out from his head. then Inga yelling, "No, please!" And that's when we zoom to the clock where it says 11:59 and 53 seconds according to the script, but it actually ends with 57 seconds on the clock. And then it picks up to where we left off. So, a lot of crap that was written in this end scene. And all of it pretty much crappy.
Yeah, I was going to say, so this could have been a whole lot worse than it was. So the final product is awesome.
Yeah, we've noticed some of that stuff with the airplane as well. Like, going through the script, I was like, wow, there were some scenes in there that were definitely cut for a very good reason.
Yeah, wow.
Just jokes that don't work. Made my mother grow 2 heads, and we're going to just suddenly go to a random insert of an old woman with 2 heads. Just it could be 12, or maybe it's 12:15, as if like they're not really paying attention to the clock, that Igor doesn't know the time. We're going to have this weird scene of just the villagers coming in, and Igor's going to be standing right there and go, what? Like that's stalling them. None of it felt like that was actually going to work.
So Dave, let me ask you, as we've gone through this and we've gone through the script as it's written and mostly shot, they shot it almost to the script, and we've been able to see the finished product and see what they've edited out. I've basically kind of felt like each scene where they've edited stuff out or not used something, that it made the movie better in the edit. What are your thoughts here and really for the movie as a whole?
Yeah, so I've seen that with a lot of movies that I've analyzed. When they go, you don't always shoot everything you write. And what I've noticed from Airplane is there's a whole lot in the script that never got shot. And then what you shoot, oftentimes you throw out a whole lot because of the way things play, the way they feel, the way the timing works out. And then everything like that. I mean, that's just filmmaking. It's just the way you do it. So I would have to agree, even though I don't know everything that got cut out of this, that usually they make the right call. And I'm sure that whatever was dropped from Young Frankenstein made it a better movie for it. Even though the scenes may have worked individually, unlike that scene that you just described to us, sometimes it doesn't work as a whole.
Yeah, it could have been a real garbage fire, I think, with all that in there.
I think what I'm seeing, especially with this, like, it felt like maybe even where we're getting the sense that they're just trying to finish the movie. I'm wondering if they felt that with the script, that they had spent so much time early on developing everything and had a great pacing, had a great, even the stuff they took out, all those scenes, a lot of them were pretty good.
Yeah.
They just slowed the movie down or took us away from the main storyline for too long. We had to get back to the main story. The writing itself feels clunky, and maybe that's why, we are left with the best of what they had, but maybe that's why it doesn't feel quite as polished as the rest of the movie so far.
Yeah, it sure doesn't. And I guess as a writer, the only way you can convey your ideas to the production team is to write it. And so you end up with a lot of extraneous stuff. But you're right, man. Even here at the end, the writing is not great. The writing went from an A to an A plus to a C to a C plus.
Yeah. Again, when she says, "What is that?" Oh, it's the angry villagers. I mean, you're
really?
basically narrating what I'm seeing. I don't need you to do that for me.
Right. And it is a movie. Yeah. I mean, we visually are getting that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So even though the writing in the last few minutes of this is maybe not as good as it used to be, at least they didn't punt the ending. Like, for instance, Blazing Saddles or Monty Python and the Holy Grail, right? Where you just go, you know what? Just singing, dancing, just bring in, something that just destroys the whole reality of the show. So, they kept it real.
You're right.
That is a good point.
You're right, absolutely.
That is a good point.
And no, don't get me wrong. I love it for Blazing Saddles for the reason they do it in Blazing Saddles. Mm-hmm. This would not have worked. To all of a sudden say, oh, you know what? You're watching a movie, so since we all know now that we're all watching a movie, let's break out into the parking lot and and everybody goes home and finishes the movie from an apartment. That would not have worked.
Yeah, and Dave, it's interesting that you mentioned the Holy Grail. I think you and I should be really good friends because I love Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and the last 5 minutes is painful. It
is. I usually turn it off.
I do too. It's awkward and really hard to watch, and it's like, guys, man, could you just not have given us 5 more minutes of the great stuff you were doing?
Could you have pushed the shooting date back one more week? Just come up with a better ending. Well, maybe that is. Sometimes you write yourself into a corner and you're like, Okay, let's just get out of here.
Yeah, right.
And that's the thing is people like Monty Python and Mel Brooks at the time to do the sort of fake out ending where you pull back and reveal the fourth wall. That was seen as edgy, I think, at the time. So.
Yeah, maybe that's just that we don't know what it was like because we've seen it so many years later, and it feels almost feels like a cop out. It almost feels like we don't know how to end it. So rather than try to come up with a cheesy ending that nobody's going to like, we're just going to go completely in the opposite direction and give you just this nonsense that makes you just go,
right.
What the hell?
Yeah. I think I would like to try to sound smart in some form and say a movie is only as good as its ending. But I think what we're kind of seeing here is that's not true, because this is a great movie and the ending is not really that awesome.
Well, thankfully we're not done yet. We still have some of the movie. Yet. I will tell you, though, I have one more issue with this minute. And for folks, again, I feel like this week we've bashed a little too much on next week. I can tell you there's going to be a couple of moments that will help redeem, I think.
No question.
But does anybody here, the three of us listening right now talking, have an issue with how Peter Boyle chooses to say the words, "I am the monster"?
I am the monster!
I do not.
You don't have a problem with the way he does that to Inspector Kemp?
No, I don't.
Dave, what about you?
I don't really have a problem with it. I don't know if it's the strongest choice he could have made now that you pointed out.
Because I don't like it at all. Because his delivery sounds almost like he's imitating Kemp's voice. And he's almost trying to be scary with it. Well, and I don't, but then the rest of it, which we don't get to, is a very soft, philosophical discussion that we get into next week, which is beautiful.
Well, let me tell you why I think that was a good choice.
All right, yeah. Help me off the ledge.
Yeah, the reason that I like the way he did that, and really in a little way redeems the scene, it's because he needed to be in charge and get his point across to the mob. Kemp tries to take charge of the conversation, and the monster says, "Hell no, I'm in charge of the conversation." And so it needed that punch to get the attention of the mob and to take control of the conversation.
Dave?
Yeah, no, I think he's right about that. I think he's using shock to take control. So I just listening to it now, I think he could have, if he wanted to do that, he should have gone further into it, maybe put more of a growl into it. It's sort of halfway there.
Walt's kind of giving me. I've got my fingers now. Like the tips of my fingers have found a ledge and a lip. I'm holding on. Because I don't disagree that he needed to immediately gain control. Not that they weren't already dead quiet.
Right.
I mean, he already got their control by standing up and talking. But okay, fine. If he's going to have to go and put Kemp to get Kemp to shut up, the fact that he actually leans in, says it the way he says it, almost like a kid would, like just, "Hey, the monster." I don't like it. I think had he risen, like brought his shoulders up and like maybe roared or something, to get the same effect, I just don't like the way the directorial or actor choice of how he delivers it. It feels sophomoric the way he delivers it here, rather than let me take control. And I think there could have been another way to do it and still gotten that control. I hate him leaning his head in, because when he does, his head is actually lower than Kemp's. Doesn't make him look imposing anymore. Doesn't make him look like this big domineering figure that's been shot so well through the course of this film. All of a sudden, he looks like he and Kemp are the same size.
I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I think that what they were trying to achieve with that is what they needed to achieve. But you're probably right. There may have been a better way to do that.
Because I think in the next minute, which we won't get to until next week, Peter Boyle, we've said how brilliant his nonverbal acting is. Mm-hmm. He has conveyed so much through all of this film, except for the song and dance moves, putting on the Ritz. He never says a word. And all of a sudden, what's coming next week, I think helps fix everything we talked about this week, for the most part. I think when we have him addressing the villagers next week, all these little problems we have, all these major problems in some cases, I think go away.
So a lot of what we've said, and Dave, you could comment on this too, or I would love for you to comment on this, because we've said throughout this movie that a lot of times they've really let the scene kind of play out. And I feel like everything that they're doing in these last really 4 or 5 minutes has been, let's take the shortest point from point A to point B and do that to get there. They're really trying to wind the movie out as quickly as possible. Do you see that, or am I an idiot?
You're an idiot. No.
Well played, sir.
One doesn't have anything to do with the other.
Well, this is true. That's a good point.
Why not both?
Let's just take this one incident.
Well, you are right on both counts. Look at you.
Yeah, I couldn't have walked into that
You're
any better.
1,000.
I can see what you're saying about it sort of feeling like they're trying to wrap it up. I never really got that myself, though. I feel like, and of course, I've never analyzed it this much, so clearly we go down some rabbit holes when we do this sort of thing. I don't think I've really ever thought that the ending was a weak point of the movie before, although you do make good arguments. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a problem with it.
I think what you're saying, Walt, is probably the best way to say it and still keep people from lighting their heads on fire. They've spent so much time earlier allowing a scene to play out, and I think you're right. It feels like these are all of a sudden such economic scenes. We're going to quickly get from point A to point B, and that's maybe why it feels maybe more rushed. And that's why I think maybe there's some of these errors we're finding where it just doesn't feel right. Not necessarily that it's a bad movie at all. In fact, it's not. It's a great, great movie. And you don't see these things if you watch these 5 minutes straight through, because you're like, okay, we're getting to this, we're getting to this, we're getting to this. Oh, the villagers are here. Oh, now he's talking. But when you slow it down, you just realize the care that went earlier, it doesn't feel quite the same here. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be that what we heard reading from the script, maybe they had no choice but to go to the shortest path because there was so much crap that just didn't work.
Right. I'll be honest. As long as I have loved this movie, I've always had a rough time at the end. The ending has always seemed...
Was it the very, very ending, or like this piece here?
This piece here.
Because we still have another 6 minutes to go after today.
Yes.
And 5 and then a minute for credits.
And I think a part of why I have such a problem with this movie is its own worst enemy, because the rest of it is so fantastic that this part really stands out as the weak part of the movie to me. And anyway, it doesn't really take away my love for the movie. It doesn't really take away the fact that I think this is one of the greatest movies ever made. But it does stand out as the very weak part of this movie.
All right, Dave, what do you think? I know you kind of mentioned it before when he asked you the first time, but now that we've kind of gone back and forth a few times, anything you want to add more?
I can see what you're saying, and you're probably right that they probably are skimping a little bit here. But on just as a counter viewpoint, the scenes in earlier that play out are more developing the story and developing the characters, and now they need a climax, and so we do want to kind of get to the end because I don't know. No, you know what?
Funny how you just talked yourself into that.
I'm talking myself. Yeah, I think you may be right. I think the rest of from the taking Elizabeth to the lair to here does feel kind of rushed in a weird way and a little disjointed. So. Yeah, maybe it's one of those things like Caddyshack where they shot a bunch of stuff and they got into the editing. You're like, well, I'm not sure what we have here, so let's cut it together.
Dear Lord, please let there be a movie here.
Yeah.
As we wrap this up and we start to wind down the week, because we are done just about with minute number 100, I think it bears repeating. We love this movie. We would not have spent this many man hours discussing it, bringing guests on, analyzing it, delving into the behind the scenes, the facts, just pointing things out if we didn't love it. I mean, we'd be some weird kind of masochists if we were just hating this movie day in and day out. I couldn't do the editing. So I want everyone who's listening, relax, take a breath. I do think it picks up after here. I do think with all the rushing to get here to the monster transference, I think it does level off and ends on a good note. So folks, don't give up on the podcast. We've got one more week. A little over a week because we got 6 more episodes to go. So with that said, Dave, do you have any final thoughts about this minute before I ask you about your final thoughts in general of Young Frankenstein?
I think you guys have already mentioned this, but I never really noticed that Kemp wears a monocle over his eye patch before.
Yes.
That is one of my favorite things about his character.
Yeah.
From the very, very beginning in the angry town hall meeting, he does that and cleans his monocle by raking it over his buttons.
Right. Yeah.
Walt, anything about this minute?
No, not really. I think what I do want to reemphasize here is exactly what you said. I love this movie. This is a great movie, and I have always been and always will be one of the great evangelists for this movie because I want everybody to watch it and enjoy it as much as I do. I think that it has some of the greatest humor of any movie ever made, and I stack this movie up, and I expect other movies to use it as the movie to try to be as good as, like you should look at this and go, I need to be that good. So these last 5 minutes are really rough to go through for me because, but I hope that it kind of adds to our credibility. Because people say, yeah, they're just not going to be fanboys about it, that they are going to be honest. And as we go into whatever our next movie is, that this is kind of what you can expect from us, that we're going to gush over the parts that we love, but we're going to be honest about the parts that we don't.
Right. I think that's perfect. Dave, since you are wrapping up the week with us and you had a chance to be on this wilder ride toward the end of the film, what are your just overall final thoughts about Young Frankenstein?
Well, as I said earlier, the thing that sticks with me for this movie is the look of it, the cinematography, the art design, the costumes. They just nailed this genre of filmmaking. And if you didn't know better, and if it weren't for a couple of things in the movie, you would think that it was made in the 40s or 50s or something. So that's always the best. Having said that, and having loved this movie since I was a child, watching it as an adult, a lot of it doesn't quite land as well as it used to for me. The timing of the jokes or whatever. So, as good as it is, I for some reason, I don't find myself watching it that much anymore.
It's interesting because I'm kind of the opposite. And
yeah,
I thought Blazing Saddles was always the funnier movie of the Brooks Wilder kind of teamings. I thought that I still to this day find it to be one of the funniest Gene Wilder movies. I just love Blazing Saddles. Maybe it's because I love Westerns. Maybe it's just when I saw it when I did. This movie, I've learned to appreciate so much more after doing this minute by minute. I loved it, but I didn't go to it all the time. I might have watched it once a year around October and the Halloween, kind of when everybody says, oh, it's time to watch all your horror movies again, your Poltergeists, your Jasons and things like that. But I didn't watch it all the time. I could go to Blazing Saddles, 10 times in a year and watch it. But now I have and maybe it's because of the analysis, the writing, the in-depths, and how some of the jokes are more advanced and some are not. But I think that's kind of cool about why we do this, because we love breaking these movies down.
Yeah. Have either of you guys seen the musical?
No, I have not.
No, we haven't.
Okay, don't.
Wow. No reservation there.
I saw it on Broadway about 10 years ago. And so, this movie, however much some of the jokes might not work as well for me anymore, this movie, you're right, there's like a mastery of form and comic timing in a lot of the scenes, and how they let them play out and the pacing. It's all really well done. And what they do with the musical, which is what I think they do with a lot of musicals, is they take the story, they cut out about half of the content, and then they pad it with songs until it's twice as long. So, from a 106-minute movie to like a 3-hour musical, and it was unbearable. The scene with Gene Hackman, the blind man, they have this scene, and the brilliance of that thing is it's like he lights his finger, and there's like I forget what the joke is at the end of that. Like Gene
I was going to make
espresso. Yeah, that was it. He just says the line, cut, you were out. Joke, punchline, we're out, right? Whereas in the musical, they say the line, and this happens time and again. They say the punchline, and then they have a 7-minute song about the punchline.
Oh my gosh, a song about espresso.
Yeah, it's like, or a song about being blind and meeting a monster, whatever it is. It's like, are you kidding me? So, yeah, if you value this movie story.
If you value this movie, don't go see the musical.
This may come as a huge surprise to you, Dave, and I know it will come as a huge surprise to our audience, but I really don't like musicals a whole lot. I've tried to like them, but I've never really just been blown away by one. I am blown away by the talent, but it's just not my thing. I
fall in your camp. I've never had I have a problem already with willful suspension of disbelief when they have plot holes. I cannot understand how we advance a story by all of a sudden breaking into random song and dance, and everybody knows the right moves and everybody moves at the right time. And there's a handful of musicals I like, but for the most part, Give me a drama. Give me a comedy. Keep it a film. I'm just not a musical person.
Yeah,
I love the music.
My favorite musical, honestly, is the Blues Brothers. And people laugh at me all the time for that, but that's
the Blues Brothers.
That's kind of right in my wheelhouse.
That's fair.
So.
I agree with you guys. I'm not a musical lover either, but when Young Frankenstein becomes a musical, and then I saw the Spamalot one as well. We were talking about Monty Python, but 2 strikes, man, I'm out.
Ugh.
I have wanted to see Spamalot, and I've just not gotten around to it. I haven't put a whole lot of effort into it, honestly, but I would like to see Spamalot, but I probably want to see it on TV so I could turn it off if I wanted to.
Don't spend the money and get dressed up to go see it.
All right.
Oh, dressed up.
There you go. There's the big problem.
You just lost me.
Right.
All right. Well, as we begin to wrap this up, because we do need to get going, it's the weekend. We've got the whole weekend to get all caught up. If you missed out on some episodes this week or you're a little behind, perfect chance to get caught up. Dave, you've been a great guest all week long. Your analysis, especially for what you do from cinematography background with what you do in your day job. And you also have your own minute-by-minute podcast. Let's one more time give you a chance to give a quick plug. And folks, come out there and support Dave's podcast with the Airplane Minute.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been real fun. My podcast, the Airplane Minute, is at Airplane Minute on Facebook, Airplane_Minute on Twitter. I also do another podcast called Sequel Harder, where we analyze great movies and their awful sequels. That is Sequel Harder on both Facebook and Twitter, and they can both be found, along with many other podcasts, at neozaz.com.
And Walt, what about us?
Well, it's Friday, so I'd like to ask everybody to take a minute to go to Patreon and patreon.com/The Wilder Ride. Take a look at some of the offerings that we have there, and we will soon have some content out there as well. So take the time to check out Patreon, see if you want to be a part of The Wilder Ride, and also check us out on the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Wilder Ride.
And come on back next week. Come on back Monday. We are going to we wrap up the movie by the end of the week, except for the credits, which lasts 1 additional episode. So come back next week for 101, minute 101. Inspector Kemp will start off the minute saying, "You are the monster," and Kemp will actually end the minute with, "This is, of course," and he'll have to be cut off in mid-sentence. So we're going to continue what's happening, and maybe things do pick back up from some of the blemishes we unfortunately had to point out this week. But please come on back Monday for more of this, The Wilder Ride.
And I guarantee it will pick back up. We have some A+ moments coming.
Uh-huh. We get to find out how that transference went.
I am the monster.
Footsteps.
Footsteps in your footsteps. Oh, yeah, you are the monster. I'll show you a monster. Show Elizabeth the monster.